What kind of leadership is required to create a great place to work? Some time back, I was invited to speak on this subject by a CEO in front of his senior executives. I gave them a scenario. The CEO is conducting an important meeting. He gets a phone call. He has to leave the room for 45 minutes. Meeting is important. It has to continue. I asked them to visualize what is going to happen in that room. And there were all kinds of speculation. Some people said that, oh, we'll start cracking jokes. Somebody said, no, there is another person who is very senior. He's going to take over. Maybe the taskmaster in the room is going to take over. The right answer, according to me, is that the culture takes over when the CEO leaves the room. This is borrowed from a very interesting blog I read many years back at Harvard Business Review. The CEO, unlike culture, can be present only in one place at one time. And you may have hundreds of locations in your organization. In absence of the CEO, it will always be the culture that will determine what people do in all of those locations. To illustrate this point, I often ask my audience to talk about who are the leaders that they really admire most in the corporate world. Some of them will say that they are a big admirer of Jack Welch. For those of you who are in the previous generation, you remember Jack Welch. Some of them will say Steve Jobs. Some of them will say Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. And then I give them a few names of organizations like Johnson & Johnson, American Express, IBM, Marriott, Walmart, so on and so forth. And then I ask them, who are the CEOs of these organizations? Very few people actually remember the name of the global CEOs of these organizations. And what makes these organizations special? Jim Collins, the well-known author, in his book Built to Last, talks about companies which have been successful for a very long period of time. Many of these, or almost all of these, are those kind of companies. Why is it that we remember names of some CEOs but do not remember names of CEOs of organizations who have been consistently successful for a long period of time? In my opinion, in many of these organizations, culture is no longer the deputy CEO, the culture becomes the CEO. What comes in the way of culture becoming the CEO, if that is so important to create a great place to work? And this is where there is a catch. There are two statements in the Great Place to Work survey which are consistently amongst the top 5 drivers of a great place to work. One of them says management delivers on their promises. The other one says management's action match their words. In other words, consistency is the key to leadership. There is no CEO who wakes up in the morning and says, what a lovely day, let me go and create a lousy place to work. But the big challenge that we face as leaders is that we judge ourselves by our intentions, and our intentions are almost always good and honorable. Others judge us by our actions, which is why consistency in action becomes very important. How do you achieve consistency? This is where, as leaders, we have to find our own hacks. For example, in my case, One of the feedback that I got was that I was not a good listener. So what we did after some discussion is we created a listening post. At 7 p.m. in the evening, anybody can call a particular number and I would be there from 7 to 7:05, and if somebody calls, I'll be there till 7:30, and my job was to listen. And people realized that in that half an hour, I would be able to listen very actively, unlike the rest of the day when I might be interrupted many times. There were 3 rules in the listening post. 1, I have to be non-judgmental. Number 2, I can only ask questions for clarification. I am not allowed to contest what the other person is saying. Number 3, whatever we discuss, I have to close that discussion after the conversation is over. I did that for 2 years. Every working day at 7 p.m., the CEO listening post was something that everybody knew is available. 2 things happened. I, of course, could practice listening, but even more importantly, my colleagues started to appreciate that I was making a genuine effort to be a good listener. As CEOs, what are those practices and rituals which you have to be a great people leader? I would like to invite you to think about which is that one behavior that you think is going to impact your people very positively, and how do you ensure that that particular behavior is more consistent. Let me give you 1 or 2 examples. One feedback that I got was that people were not very clear about the expectations I have from them, because I would often have an idea and they got confused because in the beginning of the quarter I was saying something else. So I created a practice and I called it बार बार बोलो ये बोलने की चीज है हमारा KRA. KRA stands for Key Result Areas, and every Tuesday I kept 1 hour where I would send a WhatsApp or an email to my direct reports, reminding them of the top 3 priorities that they have for that quarter. When I was given a feedback that I need to spend some time developing the sales team, I created a forum every month on a Friday, which I called Hum Aapke Hai Kaun. And the whole objective of that forum was for us to discuss how do we move from a transactional relationship with our clients to something which is deeper, and how can we share examples of creating strong bonds with our clients, even bonds of friendship. So as a leader, if you are getting feedback in your 360 or in the assessment made by Great Manager Institute, you can try and change that behavior and perception of your people that behavior is changing by instituting a practice or a ritual. In fact, we now make it even more easier by getting people to sign in on what we call as a nudge, so that a suggestion which doesn't take more than 5 minutes for you to implement can come to you on your WhatsApp or on your email, and then help you to be more consistent in your behavior, which is the single biggest driver of creating a great place to work. This is Prasenjit B, founder of Great Place to Work in India, co-founder and CEO of Great Manager Institute.